Hey guys, it's Mr. E here, and today it is going to be just a chill hangout, discuss a topic sort of video. It's not really about any new content that's coming up for Fatshark. It is more about sort of meta commentary on Fatshark, on Darktide, on the community surrounding both of those things, which obviously includes you guys, and me, and my channel. And so I wanted to synthesize all this because we are about to go into the last quarter of the year, and as far as like Darktide content, I'm just gonna let you know right now, I anticipate it to be it's going to be very, very busy, right? So this is my last time where I'll just have the breath, the open air to just put my thoughts out on the table. And this is a culmination of thoughts that I've had over the past 3 months since the release of the Arbdes, and I wanted to put it all out here. I know I've done smaller rants, smaller complaining videos in the past on these topics. I was in the middle of one such rant on Saturday. Literally during that video record was when they dropped the teaser trailer for the update that's coming on the 23rd, and that kind of took the edge off, right? I came back to it, calmer heads prevailed, and I have reformulated my thesis statement. And yeah, so that's what I'm here to present to you today, is a thesis statement about why this community kind of like is just in absolute disarray, right? My thesis here is that this community, the community surrounding Fatshark and Darktide and stuff, is full of bad actors who are going to pounce and prey on Fatshark at every turn, at every sign of weakness. However, Fatshark also invites these villains to attack them by their own actions, or rather by their own inaction. Fatshark has learned in the past that they are going to get abuse for saying things and then backtracking on those things. And so instead of having that happen, they have withdrawn into their turtle shell and become ultra defensive. They've become very, very clammed up in terms of what they share with the community, because Lord forbid if they shared even one thing, if they give even a glimmer of hope that something is coming soon, and it's not soon as defined by the players, they will get eaten alive for it. But on the other hand, you cannot build a rapport with your community. You cannot build goodwill going forward if you don't have any interactions with them. If the only interactions you have with the community in any realistic way over the course of 3 months are hotfixes and pretty much automated, pushed out events, you're not interacting with the community, and you are letting those bad actors, those bad ideas fester in the darkness. Because when there is a void of commentary, when there is a void of interaction by the developers, you are going to give breath to all those people who will fill that void for you, who will say, you know what, like, you know, the fact that the joke is that every update is going to be a new event with a portrait frame or something as the capstone for it, and just the resources we have a million of, that should speak volumes about where the level of discourse in the community is, where the level of trust and expectations are for Fatshark delivering a good update. Even though I would posit that over the past updates that we've had, right, we've had the Arbdes update. Before that, it was Nightmares and Visions with the Rogue, or sorry, the Ogren rework. Before that, it was Havoc and that whole like new weapons and all that stuff, right? So we've had really, really good updates, and I think that if this information was packaged differently and it was shared differently with the community could have a different outlook, or at least it would quiet these negative voices. But these negative voices are allowed room to breathe, and I think that's a real big mistake. Anyway, let's go ahead and set the stage. Let's bring in some background, some scene setting, so you understand what the gripe is here, so you can see both sides of this conversation, this just argument, this thing that's just annoying to read about and see such negativity in the space of maybe my favorite game, right? So Arbdes was launched in June, late June, June 23rd, and the launch was good, right? The launch was very good. No joke. Here's the graph. That's the launch right there. This is peak players, right? So we peaked at 43K players. Massive, massive for this game. This game peaked at 107 all time on Steam. And remember that since this release here, when this was released on Steam, they've added in Xbox. I think Xbox was released after the fact, and so was PlayStation 5. So these numbers here only represent a portion of the overall players who were downloading this and playing it, and this is only concurrence. So players around the world, as they logged off to go to sleep, and other players logged on to play and enjoy the new update, they weren't concurrent. So we had a massive, massive number of players who probably were picking up this update and playing with it. And remember, this update primarily featured a playable class that was paid. So all these people were not only incentivized to play, but they're incentivized to pay. So this is a big, big win for Darktide, big, big win for the company. And it, to me, felt like a turning point for the game. I was really, really hoping this was going to be an inflection point where there are some times where the fire gets so low, where the fire dies down so much that you can't breathe any life into it again. And I was beginning to worry if Fatshark would ever, the Ogre rework was cool and all, but like Ogre rework didn't really bring anybody new to the game. Same thing with Havoc, like that's just encouraging late game content for committed players. I was beginning to worry about that, but this update really breathes new life into the game, and I mean, we all saw it. I saw it in my subscriber count. I saw it in my views. I saw it in the number of comments and interactions on my videos. People were looking at Darktide. People were interested in what was going on with Darktide, and people were excited to engage with it. And the thing that kills me is that this was wasted, more or less, right? Because now here we are. Look, this is 42 minutes ago. This is our 24-hour peak. I know it's Monday or whatever, but, there's a lot of neats out there who will play any game, anytime, right? And we're looking at a tenfold drop in peak players over the course of just 3 months. And I have talked about this issue before on previous videos. I've talked about it with some analytical content showing some data. The thing that I'm going to come back to, I'm going to give you like the technical way of thinking about it, and then I'm going to put it in a more colloquial term for you. The goal for any media and corporation who is trying to capitalize on people's attention to make a profit, whether that be a gaming company like this or a YouTube channel like me, is to take people's short-term attention and give them something that is interesting enough to them that they will become engaged for the medium to long term. So I guarantee that there is a number of you who are watching this video right now, even though there hasn't been anything new or interesting on my channel in like 2 months, more or less, who picked me up during the Arbdes launch because I was blowing up then. I was putting out a ton of content, and you still watch every video I put out because you've become committed to whatever the hell it is I'm doing on this channel, and you are engaged for the medium to long term. Now, if I just stop putting out videos for like 3 months, you might unsubscribe, or you might never watch a video again. And that is the critical flaw here. Is, to put it in that colloquial term I promised, the goal is to strike while the iron is hot, right? The iron is made hot by a lot of factors that are a lot of times out of your control, right? The reason that Arbdes got such a huge peak, that hit such a massive, massive swell of support and players, was because it was on Warhammer Skulls, because it was a unique thing that was being added to this game, and it was big enough that it left the normally small orbit of, gaming whatever that would actually show what's going on in Darktide, like my channel or whatever, and it actually went onto mainstream content because this is a big thing, and they probably worked with outside advertisers to get that message out there. So the iron was hot. They were primed, they were ready, and they deliver the product on time. They released hot fixes. We can look at the hot fixes here. Ignore my text with Tanner Lindbergh there. They released 2 hot fixes afterwards. They were there and present, but here's the problem. Fatshark goes on vacation in June, late June, early July, all the way through pretty much until August. They didn't come back until August. And that is completely okay. Far be it from me to criticize someone for having a healthy work-life balance. God, like, call me like a socialist, commie, libtard, or whatever, but I actually do think that people should really put work-life balance above pretty much anything else in terms of their job, because if you don't have a life to live, then what's the point in working, right? So I fully support their ability to take that vacation, but at the same time, if you want to have success, if you want to make something and grow something great and powerful and new and capitalize on that moment, your one golden moment, sometimes sacrifices have to be made, right? Sometimes you just have to overcommit and really, really go in hard. Do something that in other scenarios wouldn't be a healthy or good decision, might even set you up for failure, but then make certain you capitalize on that as well. And this is where I want to bring in a couple of comparisons. The first comparison I want to make is to Saber Studios. These are the developers of Space Marine 2. I'm certain many of you have played that game as well or are aware of the game, and you probably see me talk about it. And the other comparison I want to make is to a little-known YouTube channel called Mr. E, and this YouTube channel just passed 25,000 subscribers. So it's getting up there. Someday it'll be the new, like, PewDiePie, but without the gamer word, probably. So we are going to first talk about Saber, right? Saber had a pretty similar thing going on to this Arbdes launch that Fatshark did just very recently, at the very beginning of September. That was the anniversary update. The anniversary update brought a ton of new content. It was the biggest update the game has seen since its launch one whole year ago. And they have watched over time as their players, dwindled from that massive, massive high they started on, because, Warhammer game, of course, every person who loves power armor is going to swarm to it. And obviously it lost a lot of that steam, but it kept alive through a series of pretty decent patches, but nothing really spectacular. And then boom, here is the anniversary update, and it had more content than any patches ever had before. It had 3 new weapons that were a new tier called the Heroic tier. These are legendary, like, Lord weapons, so nerds go wild over that. There were a bunch of new cosmetics. There was a new enemy within a faction. There was, I think, 2 new maps. Like, there was a lot of content here, and they knew that this anniversary update was going to pop, because not only, like, are they celebrating an anniversary, so there's already going to be eyes on them because they're expected to do something big, but they produce a lot of content for this occasion. The goal was to get as many eyes on this thing as possible when it launches, so that we can announce other stuff, so that we can get even more buy-in. And that is why on their anniversary, or even before their anniversary rather, it wasn't just an announcement of, here's what's for the anniversary update. It was an announcement of their whole ass roadmap. And this roadmap showed, okay, here's an anniversary update. It's coming out within a week, which was mind-blowing to people. People already thought there might be something coming, but they didn't know what. Here was the announcement of everything that was coming, and here it is coming out with a week. And if that wasn't enough, they tell you what they're doing 6 weeks after that. They told you what you're doing 6 weeks after that. Then they told you that in spring, there's a whole new class coming, and all these things. And they had it plotted out all the way, like, I think, like 9 months in advance, right? So on its surface, when you put something like this out, and when you call your shots, it's not going to do anything good for you in 99% of cases, right? If I went right now and said, guys, I'm committing to you. Next month, I'm going to make 100 videos. In October, I'm going to make 100 videos. Well, if I make 100 videos in October and I make my promise, is anyone going to, like, care? Am I going to get extra subs, or are people going to give me a bunch of money and kudos for making my self-imposed goal? No, they're not. They are going to shit on me if I claim, over and over and over again, if I post on social media that I'm going to do this thing, and here I go to do this thing, and I just didn't do it, if I fell down on the job, then they're going to shit on me. So you're opening yourself up to criticism. You're opening yourself up to, people attacking you rightly for failing at your own goals and for not giving the community what was promised. So Saber doing this, in a lot of scenarios, would be a bad thing. But in the context of the anniversary update, when this was a large enough thing that happened that they were breaking free of that small maybe like Warhammer focused ecosystem into mainstream gaming news, mainstream news in general, talking about how big this update is, and now they're lumping in the roadmap on top of it. That is going to be put on all these websites. It's going to get a ton of clicks, it's going to get a ton of eyes, and when you look at that as a player, you might log in and play for the anniversary update and then log out. And if you log out, what's going to keep you logging in the next day? Well, you got to grind out the stuff that they added into the game if you're invested in the game. But then you might get bored with that. Well, by the time you get bored with it, you know that there is something good and you know roughly what it is that's only like a week or two away. Knowing what's coming in the future is going to give you that a little bit more buy-in, right? It's going to kind of tide you over. And let's say that maybe you do kind of cool off. Maybe the 6-week minor updates to add like one new map aren't going to be enough for you to stay really engaged with Space Marine all the way throughout the year. But when you come back around to it, if you're engaged enough that you're still watching, like, you know, whatever the equivalent, I guess, like First Tour Guardsman, the Sloptide news of Space Marine 2, if you're still engaged enough with the game that you're interested in watching the news, if you know there's news out there in the ether, you are going to be made aware and you are going to be notified when that big update, the Tech Marine, comes out next year. And so you're much more likely to swing back in and become part of the ecosystem again and become part of the revenue streams and bump those player numbers back up. And this is the critical fall down that I think that Darktide suffers from by its lack of communication, by its lack of transparency in its plans, is it lets, to take it back to that colloquial term that I used earlier, it lets that iron, when it is red hot, go completely cold numerous times a year, at least 2 times a year over Christmas break and over summer break. That iron goes stone cold and then they have to heat it up from there. To continue on that note of striking while the iron's hot, let's bring up my second example. Not Saber this time, but instead Mr. E, the YouTuber, you might know him. So Mr. E, well, I'll just drop the fucking ruse. Okay, it's me, right? Everyone knows. The secret's out. I'm Mr. E. Mask is off. So I knew when Arbdes was announced, I had this hunch that this was going to be a big thing for Darktide, right? This was the biggest thing I've ever felt that was coming out about the game, and I'm not that different than a normal average human, so I felt that this was going to be a really, really big thing. It was going to have a lot of eyes, and this was my chance, right? So, in the lead up to Arbdes, I did everything I could to get ready so that I would be there when this thing blew up so that I could go to the moon with it. And it worked, right? I grew as much in terms of subscribers and engagements and views in 1 month as I had in the previous 4 months, because I knew this thing was going to be hot. This iron was going to be hot and I needed to strike then. And so after that, I didn't just stop with the builds that I made. I continued to trickle builds, but I changed content to talking about, now we needed to talk about all the power level comparisons, talking about each individual weapon. And over time, it cooled down, it cooled down, it cooled down. And really, ultimately, here we are just left with the embers, right? But the fact is if I had instead taken the Fatshark approach and I had posted like a week, 1 week worth of builds, and then just taken 3 months off and just posted like Sloptide news and that's it at each hotfix, this channel would be pretty much dead, right? That no one would be interested in watching it because it would have fallen off of people's algorithms. The algorithm that dictates what people view on YouTube isn't all that different than the algorithm that dictates what games people are interested in, right? So when games are having frequent updates, when games are having things going on, it puts it on the front page. It puts it right up front in your attention. It puts it in your feed. And then if you click on it, now the system knows to recommend it to you again, to keep you appraised of that stuff. But if you know that every one of the last 5 updates that's been put on the Darktide page has just been a hotfix, and you haven't clicked on any of them because they're just a fucking hotfix, well, in the game, the system, if you're on the Steam's homepage, isn't going to show you the new actual content that's coming out. And so, you know, the same thing would happen for my channel if I stopped posting entirely for 3 months. Is no one would be clicking on Mr. E videos after the fact because they haven't been clicking on Mr. E videos for 3 months. So clicking on them, and you guys that are out there that click on every one of my videos that I see you in the comments of my streams literally the 3 seconds after it opens, you guys are the guys that click on every single video that I put out. And, you know, I know that. But the people that take a little bit longer to find it, or maybe even miss my videos, it's because you're not clicking on them the second they show up. You're not going into my guys, click on my videos. Even the Borderlands ones, okay? No, so so that is the comparison there, right? If Saber had posted their update, it would have been good. They would have gotten a big spike in players, but it would have dropped off pretty quickly because there's no hope, there's no ambition for anything on the horizon because they're just kept in the dark. It's an empty void. If I had posted one, you know, like 5 build guides worth of content and then just fucked off into the ether, I would have seen a pretty big pop from my channel for like 1 week and then dropped off into the void. Fatshark is implementing this strategy and it does not work, or at least doesn't work from the perspective of someone who wants to like succeed and watch their endeavors grow and it get more and more ambitious, right? And I don't want to put Fatshark into that hole. I don't want to, you know, like I don't want to yuck on anyone's yum. If this is what Fatshark's goal is for their company and for Darktide, is just to, hey, we want to make a game that satisfies us and a core of a small core of fans who are going to want to keep coming back every 3 months and check out what cool new stuff we added to this gameplay, and we're going to refine and make it as enjoyable as we can for just a small group of people. That's great and all. But for a brief blessed moment in the sun, well, at least for 2 brief blessed moments in the sun, on launch and with his Arbdes thing, there were signs that this thing could actually like keep some momentum and build off of that and ramp even higher throughout the year. And I think that what kills me about that is that hope in my that like twinkle in my eyes is kind of gone. We have to build back from like, you know, completely cold iron at this point. And the other thing that kills me about that is that because I am a creator with inside knowledge as to what's going on behind the scenes of Fatshark, is that they've known what they were doing for this update, and I've known, so they've known even before I knew, right, for at least a month before where we are now. And I doubt that any of the core concepts of what are going to be in this update have changed all that much, but they were planning for when this update was going to be released like a whole month ago. So what if, and this is just a conceptual thing, I know they're very averse to this, but what if they had given some vague hints or even just some vague declarations about what content is going to be in this update? Wouldn't that keep players more engaged? Wouldn't that keep more players talking about it, theory crafting about it, thinking about it, right? If they told you that there's a new class being added in this update, I'm choosing something that, you know, is just completely off the wall here. It may or may not be that. If they told you there's a new class being added in this update, think about how wild the posts would be on Reddit. They have to figure out what the new class is. How's it going to work? What would be the lore justification for adding another class? Maybe you could even show some of like the like, you know, screen art or something. So they'd have that to work on, right? Tease that stuff out over time. And I understand that there is a work economy that goes into communicating this stuff with the community as well, right? That there is actual work that it takes to put this stuff together, to compile it and then release it like this teaser trailer. Like obviously, like it's only a couple seconds long, but work went into this, right? So they had to put work into this. But at the same time, you have a position, or you had, which is what we're about to talk about, a position at Fatshark that is called a CM, a community manager. And the lead community manager should be the person who is in charge of this, or at least in other company structures who are, you know, producing similarly styled, like, you know, seasonal update content as this game is trying to do. Their community managers are engaged with the community and trying to give the feeling that the community is alive and vibrant and thriving and in coherence, and that the devs are listening, that it's a two-way street, and actually the devs are just like you guys. Like, that's the idea behind a community manager. And I want to start, we've already done comparisons to like Saber and myself in terms of their content schedule. I want to start comparing their community management style to another dev of a game that has a very, very good community management style, and that's Warframe, Digital Extremes. perhaps a lot of you have probably played Warframe, right? Digital Extremes, I mean, granted, they are a much larger company with many more people on the payroll, but their community managers are visible fixtures in their community, and they've been there for years, right? These are people who the community knows by name. They are people who are memed about. They are people who are on live streams with this content like at least every month. They are involved in teasing. They're involved in ARG content. They're involved in like fan contests and all sorts of stuff like this, right? Being a CM is a very, very involved job at Digital Extremes because you're managing a big community. But no matter the size of your community, your goal is pretty simple. Your goal is to make the players feel like they are part of something bigger, that they are part of the ongoing story and development and with the game. And there's not this huge gulf between us little rabble down here yelling up at the obelisk that is the devs and just wondering when they're going to throw the next, breadcrumbs down to us, right? They are there to be the emissaries and to share the good word. And that is inherently where this is broken down for Fatshark, is they have gotten absolutely fucking slammed by a bunch of toxic people in the community, and that has caused them to almost certainly, and I don't want to speak out of turn here, but it really does feel like they almost certainly have a corporate policy that tells their CMs what you can and cannot talk about, and that the policy leads to literally just don't say anything unless that there's like a hotfix coming out, more or less, right? So, if you were to look at how much one of the CMs for Digital Extremes interacts with the community on a daily basis, they're on the Discord, they're hosting live streams, they're playing the game, right? I don't know the Digital Extremes Warframe devs or CMs like off the top of my head, but I can tell you from my experience of like playing that game and watching their streams and stuff, those people, they all play the game. They are people who, they might not be MR30 or anything. They're not like legendary ranked, but they definitely do play their own game. They admire their own game, right? And again, I don't want to like point any fingers, but I couldn't tell you if any of the CMs that we've had in the last year, which is another funny thing we got to talk about now, have played Darktide. That if that's at all in their purview, I think they might just be community managers and that's it. I don't think they're big like Darktide players. And having that level of engagement, being able to have those streams and have that rapport with the community is very, very important. This is something that used to happen with Vermintide. There used to be like back when Akshi was with the community, they would do like streams with the devs with some regularity, just hanging out and chatting with people. And these streams were good. But over time, as content was slowed down because Darktide was coming in and Vermintide was fading out, and the company got more and more backlash and more like turtle mode about what information they wanted to share when, so they didn't ultimately get burned. The sentiment in those chats and the sentiment for the stream started getting more negative because people were like, cool, what the fuck are you doing playing games on stream? How fucking dare you? Go work. And it's like, okay, but like these people are community managers. They're not the people who develop the game, but whatever, dude. So they got a bunch of negative stuff like that, and eventually they don't do these streams anymore. They don't communicate with the community at all. And after there was a huge amount of backlash after launch for Darktide, they even dropped the community like program with creators. And just now, recently, like now I'm a creator with Fatshark. A lot of people are. They're starting it back up finally, but like there was years that went by where they went full on turtle mode and they just did not interact with the community, which has the positive effect, I suppose, of you're avoiding those trolls, those people who are always going to be negative little shitbirds no matter what, right? You're just not giving them even a sliver to prey upon. But at the same time, you are giving them all of the space they need to write the narrative that Fatshark is literally doing nothing, that Fatshark is lazy, that Fatshark is just going to make another like cosmetic set, like that's all that's coming out with this update, right? To make those little snide comments, and then that sort of stuff is what pollutes the brain space of everybody else. It's what sets the tone for the narrative around the game. So when you see posts like this one, like the one that's actually announcing the content, I haven't even looked at these yet, but there is still going to be negative bullshit in here, even for like a big positive thing coming to the game, right? People giving it the Jester Award, you already know they're going to be like that. Developer promises. Single player? Nope. Optimizations? Nope. Hopefully there's a bit more. God, what do you think? This is going to be it? Like there's going to be complaining in here. I know. Hold on. We gotta find it. Oh, I can't play solo. Oh no, this is another guy who's being sarcastic. Another map that you can't tell apart from the rest of the game. Yo, Moby and Sixten coming. No, wait, we already have these guys. New map? Nope. Like, okay, so people getting negative about the game in what should be positive, and uninstalled until servers are fixed. But fix your game. It's like fix your game. People play this game, right? So like this should be a positive. It should be a big W for the devs. But because this other stuff, this negative stuff that exists swirling around the concept of Darktide and Fatshark in the conversation space is allowed to exist, it is answered with silence by the devs. That is what sets the tone. And then people go in here and they see it and they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be as hyped for this as I am because no one else seems to be all that hyped, right? What could be done about this is just come out fucking swinging. Just open up the doors and just say, okay, here are the issues that I know you guys have with our development cycle. Just be forthcoming and tell us why these things aren't happening, right? Go ahead and put out a dev blog that just once and for all says, there will not be a solo mode for this game because it does not work. The bots are too stupid. Whatever reasons you need to put out there for it. Go ahead and put out the dev blog that says we could not do weapon specializations or weapon customizations because of this, and this system, or maybe even like this agreement with our IP holders. We don't update, or we haven't released any new cosmetics for Arbdes because we're working on this other project. Right? Give some narrative. Like, this is where the community manager for other games comes in. They step in, they sense the fire, the shitstorm brewing. They step in, they disperse the facts, they do some stuff to assuage the fears of the community, and they get everyone back on the same page, and they spread the goodwill, right? What does not spread goodwill is just quietly sitting and hoping that it blows over. And it just annoys me, not from the Fatshark perspective side, but it annoys me that I exist as a creator in a community that is full of this shit. Because I like to think that the space that I have created, that the people who watch this video are generally positive people. 9 times out of 10, the people that leave comments on my videos talking about, like, when I talk about updates or stuff, are actually hyped. They're hypothesizing about what might be coming and yada, yada, yada. 1 out of 10 is going to be like, who cares? This better, like, you know, none of this matters, like, whatever. Like, they just completely doomer, right? But the overarching Darktide space, first of all, it's non-existent because, like, the lack of the big long droughts have pretty much killed off, like, most other content creators. But they're just extremely, like, hyper negative. They're just really hyper negative spaces that are either just like doomer about, like, oh, there's no content coming, or this game sucking for one reason or another, or the lack of balance, or they're like overly elitist, or just hating on other communities and other creators, right? There's a lot of smaller creators out in this space, but like no one wants to be engaged with a lot of them because, like, the space is just so toxic and fractured, and there's also just not a whole lot of, like, things going on to actually comment on. So yeah, this is just a really frustrating thing from a creator standpoint. I know it must be frustrating from a dev standpoint to release your teaser trailer and expect positive results, and then people are out here shitting on it. It must be frustrating and, you know, just annoying to release the thing about your pets who you love and have people, like, saying, who fucking cares, right? I actually had a guy, let me actually use soapbox for a second. I had someone post that shit on, I can't remember what some video or something I put out where I showed Bernie and talked about him for like no less than 20 or no more than 20 seconds. And some motherfucker posted on there, "Who cares about your fucking dog?" And I said, "Excuse me, go fuck yourself. Like, you are a literal piece of shit human being. What is wrong with you?" And I'm very glad that like 10 other people joined in on the bandwagon on that one and shit on this guy. But like, that's the sort of people who are out in this space, and it's gotta feel terrible as devs to have those people existing in your space, and they make up a non-insignificant portion because there's only so many people interacting with the space, and a good portion of them at this point are trolls who are going to come into a post like this and it's on Reddit, but like, yeah, they're going to come into a post like this and they're going to gripe and complain about it and shit post it. And it's just really, really frustrating to watch this happen. And my ultimate, before I close on this point, is that it's a two-way street, right? This negativity is fostered by a circle jerk of negativity that is swirling around this because there is no voice from the community. There's no decisive voice from the devs to say, no, that is not the case. That is not true. This is the actual truth behind the situation. This is what we are currently working on. Put their foot down, say exactly like, roughly when things are going to come out, and then just disperse those rumors, right? There would be no more bitching and complaining about, where's that veteran weapon you promised? So if you said the veteran weapon is coming out in the winter update, right? That is guaranteed. The veteran weapon is coming out in the winter update. There you go, right? If you just like put your foot down and said these things and just got them hard and fast, again, extra frustrating from my having inside knowledge perspective, because I know they've had a lot of this stuff planned out and they were bound by duty to put this out in this update, and they could have said it earlier and just completely changed the narrative around it, started the hype train a little bit early, and that didn't happen, right? They're understaffed for this element of the dev process. And this brings me to the last point that I want to make in this video, I guess, more or less, maybe a little bit like one more half point. God, how long have I been going here? Feels like an hour. Who cares? This is like the third or even fourth community manager. By the way, if you didn't know, somewhere at the top here, where does it say? Oh no, it's on the Fatshark forums. We run off Kitefin. Kitefin is gone now too. This is the wrong thing. Here we go. So this is deny your cookies. F yourself. Where is it? Did she remove it from the thing? Okay. Oh no, maybe it's on her. Sorry guys, you'll bear with me. Post activity. Here it is. Okay, so it was a comment on here. But Kitefin, our CM, who's been CM for like, I don't know, 2 months, maybe 3 months since Straw Hat left, is now leaving, right? They're going on to school, right? Which, going to school is based. But this cannot be healthy, right? I think this speaks to a couple of issues with the CM role for Fatshark. First of all, the CM role at Fatshark is completely neutered in comparison to like a CM community manager role at like any other studio, right? Because they're not allowed to communicate pretty much anything to the players, because they have like this really, really strict like don't talk to this toxic ass community sort of rule going on, it seems, and they just don't have anything to share, so they just don't share. They're not really like out there interfacing. They're not having streams or anything like that. So the community manager role pretty much is post the updates and get verbally abused online. That's your whole job description, which has to suck. It has to be like the worst job. Probably. Let me think of something funny. Oh yeah, this job has like worse turnover than being a person who believes in vaccines under RFK right now. Basically, like this is like a crazy turnover job at this point, and it's because it sucks. It's because everyone is just shitty to you. Even if you share like fun things like the pets of Fatshark, you're just gonna get shit on, and it doesn't. You're fighting a losing war as the CM here. So I don't know, if there's any CM incoming, and I think that right now, maybe with her departing, I think that threw the communication part of the dev cycle into a little bit of turmoil, because I know that they have been ready to talk about, like, generally what is going to be in this update for a while. I know they've known what's going to be in this update. They don't have patch notes or anything like specific stuff nailed down, but like they could talk generally about it. The fact that they put out a teaser on Saturday of all things tells me that they knew that they needed to do something. I think that this, again, like I said earlier, this was a bit of a misplay. Putting this out seems just tone deaf when players are really expecting this. Do this and then follow it up with this, and you'd have much better results. But maybe it just wasn't ready. But they got the intern to go in on Saturday and press the publish button for this. So yeah, all this to say, like, Fatshark just needs to stop stepping on these rakes of like, setting themselves up and just like walking into a situation like this that's just gonna get more people to hate you. And if they do something like that, if they do have a misstep, they need an effective community manager who is allowed to say things, who can come out and just like put a kibosh on that, who can just like put their foot down and say like, no, that's, this is, here's when this thing is coming out, yada yada. Like, give us some good positive news and keep the narrative in the positive for them, because there is a bunch of forces out there who are trying to make it a very negative narrative. Anyway, guys, that's all about all the ramble I think I have in me. I wanted to circle back and say thank you guys so much for 25,000 subscribers to this channel. Almost all of you are certainly here for the Darktide content, and I guess I'll address that. I am going to continue making Darktide content. I'm not just abandoning it for Borderlands. Borderlands is pretty fucking dope, and I'm going to enjoy greatly making builds for the game, and hopefully you are interested enough to check some of those out and perhaps even check out the game. I think it'll be a good little companion, because I love making builds, I love OP stuff, and there's definitely going to be room for that with that game, so that'll be a fun game. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to abandon Darktide. I still plan on doing exactly the same amount of Darktide content as I always have, meaning build guides whenever those are relevant, commentary on different weapons and balancing, tier lists, all the stuff you've come to expect. So this will still continue to be the premier Darktide channel that will give you pretty much the breadth of every content. If you want good gameplay, you got to go watch Choco B. I'm still a trash can at this game, but I'll still give you all the slop that you could ever crave and more. And then I'm just gonna branch out as I invest more and more in this YouTube stuff. And hopefully next year sometime, go full time with it, and then we'll never look back. We'll really be chugging on the mystery machine. It'll be decide whether or not I can afford to eat food. So that'll be a cool little endeavor. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you got this far, I guarantee you're already subscribed, but I guess check and see if you are. And I'll see you very soon for some cool Darktide content. End of this week, guys. All right, mystery out. Bye-bye.